Well, we're back where it all started, beautiful British Columbia. We're here at Area 27 testing grounds with this beautiful blue Chevy Colorado, the ZR2 Bison Edition, and we're gonna see if we can test this baby to its off-road limits. Welcome back, I'm Alex, and well, we are lucky enough to be invited to GM's Off-Road Academy. Like you heard, we got this very nice looking Chevy Colorado, and well, we're gonna talk about some specs, some off-road equipment this thing has, some advantages, maybe even some disadvantages like we always do. But more importantly, what I'm really excited about is getting this thing on the specialized off-road track, and we're gonna see how these off-road components actually work in the real world. Pretty exciting. Well, she's a little bit dusty after running some trails, some obstacles, but more importantly, what makes a ZR2 a ZR2? So I want to talk about all the off-road mechanical components, and I figured we'd start up front here. So we have, with the Bison Edition, which this truck is, the AEV off-road steel bumpers here. This is going to really help with the approach and departure angles. This truck, this Colorado, has the segment leading approach angle as well as departure angle, and well, it's no surprise we got tons of room up here. Yeah, we're at a 30-degree pitch right now. We're at 30 degrees. And this is the beauty of those AEV bumpers right there. No scrape, we got it like a foot there. And as we come down, our departure angle, even that hitch isn't scraping. And then, no surprise, class-leading breakover angle, as you guys saw, not even close to scraping. Going around to the side here, we have another segment leading. This thing has 35-inch tires. We got some Wrangler Territories. These tires are actually pretty darn grippy. Now, they're not as aggressive as your Wrangler Duratrax, but they do provide some pretty darn good grip. And the beauty of these tires is that with this tread pattern that's a little bit tighter, you are still going to have some pretty good on-road performance. In behind this wheel, we have one of the crown jewels of this ZR2, and that is the MultiMatic DSSV shocks. These MultiMatic shocks are, first of all, a Canadian company, which I like. Second of all, they're gold and they actually look really, really cool. But looks aside, they actually are very functional. They use a 3-spool valve system. When on-road, use 2 spool valves, one to control compression, one to control rebound, and spool valves are extremely precise with letting oil flow, so your on-road performance is actually very good. Now, when you're off-road, these shocks can tell based upon wheel travel. When wheel travel is very large, they open up the 3rd spool valve, and that really helps to control hard impacts and helps from the suspension bottoming out. Now, if the MultiMatic shocks are not enough, you guys, we have a class exclusive jounce control damper here, and well, as you guys can see, it is going to really help control the lower control arm. When that lower control arm comes up, just really giving the suspension some help when going over some extreme obstacles at potentially high speed, and you're just not going to bottom out the suspension. And speaking of suspension, in order to get these big 35-inch tires underneath the body here, GM has actually lifted this truck 3 inches from factory. So that's not necessarily entirely true. The standard Colorado ZR2 does indeed come with a 3-inch factory lift with 33-inch tires. Now, the truck that we're playing around with today, the Colorado ZR2 Bison, comes with a whopping 4.5-inch factory lift in order to fit those 35-inch tires underneath the body. I do believe that is the highest factory lift out of any pickup truck in North America. Let me know if that's true. Now, lastly up front, we have a fully locking front differential. Again, pretty intense stuff. Having a front differential paired with our rear differential, which I'll get into in just a second, makes this thing extremely capable off-road. You can see we got one wheel almost in the air, a little bit of traction, but not enough to pull the truck forward. Back here, we have this truck, despite all the flex. Look at that beautiful MultiMatic suspension. This wheel is completely off the air, and well, here's our differential right here. With an open differential, we're gonna send all of our traction to the wheel with the least amount of traction, which this wheel in the air is that wheel. So this wheel is just gonna spin just like so. And that wheel with all the traction is not gonna push the wheel forward or the truck forward. We'll lock up the diffs and we'll try this again. Again, we have a rear wheel in the air, but this time our differentials are locked. And as Matt creeps the truck forward, we'll see that this wheel will spin the same speed as the wheel on the concrete, just like so. Beautiful. That is the beauty of having locking differentials. Makes a massive difference. This is when a front locker becomes highly advantageous as well. So we'll get Matt to lock up the front diff as well. And so we'll have the front and rear differentials locked. We're in four-wheel drive low. This once again means that all four wheels are mechanically locked to the drive line. And this means that all four wheels, no matter what, have to spin at the exact same speed. So hopefully we'll be able to pull this truck through our obstacle. Oh, beautiful. Here you go, got the drive shaft spinning there. Moving down the truck here, we have, well, again, with the Bison package, we have these nice steel AEV rocker guards, which are actually pretty beefy units here. Along with that, underneath here, we have a nice set of skid plates. Traditionally, the ZR2 comes with aluminum skid plates, which should do the job, but with the Bison edition, we have heat-treated steel skid plates or boron skid plates from AEV, one in the front to protect the front diff. We have a transfer case skid plate, fuel tank skid plate, and we have a rear differential skid plate, which you don't normally see too much. I would have loved to have had that on my Power Wagon because that big diff seems to scrape on absolutely everything. So having a rear diff skid plate, in my opinion, is a pretty nice feature to have. One thing I would have loved to have seen is a skid plate to protect our transmission oil pan there. It would have been nice to see this transfer case skid plate go up further and try and protect that. A friend of mine whose truck has actually been on the channel multiple times had his transmission pan actually cracked. He works in the forestry industry and he was going down a service road and I guess a stick came up, hit the transmission pan and cracked it. He didn't notice till he got home and saw the leak. Luckily it was just a small leak, but if it was any larger, he probably would have lost the transmission. So that's why I would have loved to seen that Colorado have a full skid plate underneath that transmission pan as well. Even my own Power Wagon, the transmission pan is pretty fully exposed and it's plastic. I mean, it wouldn't take much, again, for a stick to come up or a rock to come up and chip that. Now, before we head to the back of that Colorado, there's two things I want to talk about. First of all, that Colorado comes with a fully boxed frame. That's going to add some nice rigidity to that platform. Typically with a mid-sized truck, you would think that frame's much more likely to flex under pressure, where something like this Ram 2500 is going to have a much more rigid frame. But as I'll show you, that fully boxed frame is pretty rigid. Check this out. We are completely flexed out. We can still open the doors. So that fully boxed in frame does give this truck some pretty good rigidity. Secondly is the underbody cameras that come with that Colorado. Typically electronic off-road gear doesn't really excite me, but those cameras are very helpful and I think pretty slick. So what's really nice here, we're doing some rock crawling, is that we can see rocks beside us, but also those underneath cameras, we can see exactly where our wheels are and exactly where our wheels are going to be, where a tread is and where a tread isn't. I really like these underneath cameras. Now you might be saying, well, Alex, that's gonna get dirtier than all heck when you're running on these dirt roads, but guess what GM has done? they've added a camera washer underneath the truck. I think that's pretty slick, I'm not gonna lie. Now, coming to the rear of the truck, or well, underneath the rear of the truck, we have our rear differential right here. And as I mentioned, it is a fully locking rear differential. And so when this diff is locked, the front differential is locked. It means that all four wheels are physically locked to the driveline. And there's a number of situations that this becomes highly advantageous, which I'll show you right now. Currently, we're a little bit hung up on this obstacle. So what Matt's gonna do now is, again, we're gonna lock these differentials up. And with these diffs locked, again, every wheel is physically locked to the driveline, meaning that every wheel has to spin the exact same speed. No worry of potentially damaging or ruining a tire, getting that slip on rock. Makes off-road experiences just a little bit easier, which is always the goal. Just like the front, we have a nice set of MultiMatic DSSV shocks back here as well. They look really good, but they're also very functional. 342 gears, front and back. Not necessarily a off-road gear set, if I was gonna be honest. I would have loved to have seen GM put something like a 373 or something like a 410. For example, my Power Wagon comes with 410 gears. The Ford Raptor comes with 410 gears because a higher gear set like that is gonna transfer more torque to the wheels, first of all, but also it's gonna slow down the wheel, which just gives this wheel more control climbing over the obstacles that we climbed over today. So that's another thing I wish GM did include with this package, is a set of higher gearing. I think it would just make the control in four-wheel drive low even better. And finally, at the very back, we have the steel bumpers here, part of the Bison package. And not only do they look pretty aggressive, but they also are gonna really help with departure angle. As you can see, we were scraping a little bit, and this is what these bumpers are supposed to do. Just raise them up a little bit. And like I mentioned earlier, this is a class-leading departure angle. We also have some pretty nice recovery hooks here. Good solid pieces if you do get in a little bit too thick. Now, lastly, up on the bed here, I don't know if you guys saw it already, with the Bison package, it comes with a full-size spare tire as well as this kind of fancy Baha tire rack. Looks pretty unique, but it is nice that it comes with a full-size spare. Not every pickup truck these days is coming with full-size spares. So that is the Chevy Colorado ZR2 Bison package. And as you guys saw, this thing is no joke. It comes with some pretty intense off-road mechanical hardware, and we certainly had a ton of fun with this truck today. As a proud owner of a Ram 2500 Power Wagon, which in my humble and very biased opinion is the off-road king, this truck is pretty darn capable and would 100% give that Power Wagon a real run for its money. Let me know what you guys think. As always, would you consider buying a Colorado ZR2? Always like hearing your opinions, but as always, if you did like the video, don't forget to leave that thumbs up. And well, if you like cool stuff like this, don't forget to subscribe, because we always have cool stuff planned. And well, I'm gonna enjoy the rest of my time here in beautiful British Columbia. We'll see you on the next freaking video.